My final thoughts on what it's like to date a woman with BPD, Part 3. I apologize for being away for a little while here. I kind of ran into a little bit of a rut, creatively and mood-wise. I wasn't really feeling too well. But I'm back. I got my stuff back in order again, so I'm feeling good again, and here I am. And this is also the difficult thing when it comes down to trying to do things creative. Like, I can do my normal work, I can do my normal jobs, but sometimes it takes a lot of me to get in front of the camera here. And if I'm not up to 100%, it's tough. And that's also what makes it tough to succeed, because you got to be consistent with this stuff. And so I was consistent for a long time. But this last couple weeks here, I wasn't feeling too consistent. But hey, I've been going on full power here for a long time. And sometimes the body just needs a little bit of a break. And that's kind of what I did. But I wanted to make a third installment to this, what it's like dating a woman with BPD series, because, you know, I got pushed back on all of the videos I did, part 1 and 2 of this series. But I listened to the second one again the other day. And I made the second one about a year ago. And everything I said in the video is true. But there was one thing I think I shouldn't have gone as hard on. And I said 99.9% of the time, if a woman has BPD, that's it, you should walk away. Now, I don't think that's necessarily true. There's some caveats here. I think what I should have said is, if there's a woman who has BPD and she's not working on it and doesn't have awareness, yes, walk away then. You got to at least be working on it. But since then, I've met a lot of women with BPD, and I haven't dated them or anything, but they've reached out to me. They've commented on my videos, and some of them were extremely aware and had a lot of self-awareness about exactly what was going on with them. And I can imagine maybe they have that awareness in their relationships too, and they prevent themselves from really acting out in a hurtful way. So I want to take it back, like, regardless of who we date, regardless of who it is, time will tell how someone really is. So say a woman has BPD, but she's working on it. Hey, okay, give it a shot, but you got to be extra cautious. You do got to be extra cautious, because if you're going to be in a serious relationship with someone, that's someone you got to trust 100% of the time. And this is where I'll give the women pushback. They were commenting. They're saying I was painting BPD women in a bad light. And I'll give them a point, because there's a big difference between someone who just has BPD and then someone who is also abusing drugs and alcohol and has BPD. If someone's abusing drugs and alcohol and has BPD, like, that's probably going to be a nightmare. But if they don't abuse drugs and alcohol, they just have the disorder, wait and see. Hopefully they're at least working on it, right? But here's the thing I don't think the women understood. If a guy has a line in the sand that, hey, I don't want to date a woman with BPD, that's totally fine. Like, everyone's allowed to have their preferences. Everyone's allowed to have their thoughts on the matter and what their red lines in the sand are. Just like if a woman has her lines in the sand about what she's looking for in a guy, that's completely fine too. So in the dating world today, it's tough, regardless. If it's just like a normal person, it can be tough. Let alone if there's mental illnesses, addictions, personality disorders involved. It just adds another layer where, rightfully so, someone should be cautious. I don't think there's anything wrong with saying that. And if someone says to themselves, as a guy or a girl, that person has BPD, so I'm going to stay away, that's totally fine. Like, we can't be upset about what other people's boundaries are. Now, I want to be careful to say that and blanket it that all BPD women are terrible. I'm not saying that. I have seen some that did really work on themselves, that tried their best to heal, and they appear at least to be healthy. So that's also a possibility as well. I'm not going to say that couldn't happen. So I wanted to clarify there, because I didn't want it to be so black and white, cut and dry. Oh, it's just this and then that. Oh, if they have BPD, run. No, that's not what I was trying to say with that. In my second video, admittedly, I was a little more emotional than when I made the first one. I was kind of annoyed and felt disrespected that she was going out of her way to try to hurt me like that. And so I think my tone's allowed to change a little bit. But maybe I should have waited longer to make that video, so I was able to see it way more rationally and logically, because that's kind of how I was feeling at the time. I was giving them the benefit of the doubt about it, and then I felt like I got burned. So my attitude changed. But here it is, more than a year later, and I'm looking back at it again, and yeah, drugs and alcohol played a humongous part in her story. It wasn't just like a BPD thing, it was that plus alcohol and drugs. Now maybe if alcohol and drugs weren't involved, it still could have been problematic, but probably not nearly as bad, because she wasn't really doing anything to work on it. If someone's working on their disorders, I give them all the credit in the world. And I think the only case that psychologists, psychiatry, the world, they agree on is that NPD. NPD seems to be the only one that people don't seem to get better from. I'm not even going to say that's cut and dry either, because things can change, right? I've seen people that had terrible addictions and then improve and get clean. So there are always quote-unquote miracles that could happen. But the miracle also isn't the norm either. So with NPD, not much you can do with that. If a woman says she has BPD, and yeah, maybe you're a more open person. Maybe you're someone that's trying to give people a shot. Like, you got to go in with your eyes open. You got to know the potential pitfalls. But time will tell what's going to go on. So before you make any serious decisions in the dating world, regardless of mental health and addiction issues, you got to wait and see before you make serious commitments, make serious life decisions like, oh, let's get married, or oh, let's have a kid. Like, wait. We don't really know someone for at least 1 year. When you've gone through all 4 seasons, you've seen them in a lot of different scenarios, you see how they handle conflicts. Like, that'll really tell you, right? When you start getting into conflicts, how do they respond? Do they act on the fear of abandonment? Do they stonewall you? Do they split? Or do they actually come to and actually have a discussion about how they're thinking and feeling? Are they able to handle those mature kinds of conversations? You know, if they can, whether they're labeled BPD or not, it's a good sign. But if they can't do it, and they'll split, and they stonewall, and they shut down, then that's probably going to be a problem. And if you hear women say, or men say for that matter, if anyone says this, it's not a good sign either. If they say something like, I can't help my disorder, it's not my fault that I'm sick, that is not something that a healthy person will say, because there's no accountability in that. That's basically, I'm going to blame my disorder, and I'm not going to hold myself accountable for what's going on. And honestly, that's not really acceptable. It's not acceptable because when you say that, maybe the person's cheated. Maybe the person has done something really hurtful. It's not an excuse. Like, there is no excuse for those hurtful behaviors. It's either we take ownership of them and try to accept a personal responsibility, or we don't. And when someone says, I can't help my disorder, I can't help it, then that person's probably not ready for a relationship. Then that person's probably not ready for a healthy relationship and probably still needs to do work on themselves before they're ready. And I don't think there's anything wrong in saying that either. So, to reiterate again, if someone has BPD and is working on it and is actively making an effort, I wouldn't say it's a definite no-go. I certainly say it's a major caution, but not a definitely no-go. And then time will tell the rest. How do they handle conflicts? How do they handle enforcing boundaries? How do they handle respecting other people's boundaries? You know, if you can do those few things well, that's a good start, right? Do they stonewall? That's a bad thing. Do they go to the silent treatment? That's another negative thing. So each individual scenario does need to be taken individually. Like, there's not going to be a blanket yes or no. And if someone out there says to themselves, man or woman, oh, if someone has BPD, I've had a bad experience with them, I'm not going to go date them, that is totally fine. And I don't see how anyone can really be that upset when someone says that. That's their boundary. That's fine. No one's entitled to have to date anyone or give anyone a shot. God knows that people don't tell women, oh, you have to give that guy a shot. You have to give this dude a shot. No one's entitled to a shot at all, regardless. So when people get upset, it's like, oh, you got to be really careful not to make BPD people look bad. It's like, okay, I understand. And there's been a lot of guys that had negative experiences with BPD women too. I think that's also true. But on this video, I wanted to clear it up with a rational head to take things slow, see how each individual situation is going. At least if someone has BPD, maybe don't axe it off immediately. Don't just run immediately unless it's one of your hard lines. But if you're willing to go through it, see how they are. How do they handle conflict? How do they handle their fear of abandonment? Are they able to respect boundaries? Are they able to enforce boundaries? Time will tell these things. And this is true for all relationships, regardless if it's BPD or not. Time will tell. But rushing into big decisions, into life-changing decisions like marriage and kids, that is the danger zone. When someone really wants to rush you into those things, that's a warning. Don't do that. With anyone, we gotta wait. And some people will say, oh, it's not very romantic to have to be patient and wait like that. Sometimes you just got to be swept away with your feelings. And it's like, no. That's how you get yourself into terrible situations, being swept away with your feelings. Feelings are not good indicators of how things are really going. Time, though. Time will tell what a healthy relationship could be. Time will tell how that person handles conflict, how they handle fear of abandonment, how they handle boundaries, etc. Time. So I wanted to reiterate again to say, just because someone has BPD doesn't mean they can't have a successful relationship, but they better at least be working on it. Because if they're not working on it, not a good sign. And especially if there's drugs and alcohol involved, they can really alter people's moods and behaviors and actions. And that is what it is too. But drugs and alcohol, they're a separate entity than BPD. Often they can be together, but not always. So I wanted to try to even out my stance on it and get rid of the emotional portion I had in that second video to say, level-headedly what I think about the situation. Now, if someone came along to me and they had BPD, but they were really working on it, and they seemed to be healed, and I looked at it for a while, and they seemed to present pretty well, I wouldn't be against it. Now, I wouldn't say I'm not going to go look for someone that has BPD. It wouldn't necessarily be ideal, but I think people can change. People can change, but their actions will ultimately tell. That's what I would say. So that's my clarification video, and I don't want to do any more videos, actually, about BPD women. I don't really want to make videos about people I've dated anymore either. I don't feel like it's right to do. I know the woman I made the narcissistic video about, she did reach out to me the other day, and I might make a video about it, and that might be my last one, because I don't want to do it. Because I listened to a woman the other day, she said she doesn't go out with comedians anymore because she doesn't want to be the butt of the joke. And I thought about that, and I was like, yeah, I've done this, right? I've made videos about girls I've dated, and I just don't think I want to do it anymore. I did it because they're some of my most popular videos, but I kind of want to move forward through it. I don't want to be stuck in this dating personality disorder realm. I'd rather move forward into current events and interviews, things like that. So that's my video for today. Thank you very much if you've gotten to the end here, and comment below what you think about my clarified stance. So with that, thank you very much for watching. Have a great rest of your day.